So AutoNation, that's my company. That's the company I work for. Like I said, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what God's done in my life. And then we're going to get into some building teams. So we're good, Jared? No, I don't have a clicker. Oh, there we go. So I work in corporate America, so we use PowerPoints. These are like cozy blankets for us, okay? So this is, just so everybody's clear, this is not for you, this is for me, okay? So just to start, I grew up in a small town in Canada. My father owns a really small Toyota dealership. My path forever was to run this store. So I went to school, graduated, psychology degree, business degree, and my only ambition in life was to run this car dealership. I'm the oldest of, well, second oldest male of 4, and this was my dream. So I get going, and I happen to go to this school called the National Automotive Dealer Association. It is in Washington, D.C. There I met my beautiful American bride, who's at the back over here. Okay. And then I ship her up to Canada with me for 5 years. So on year 1 of meeting my wife, I dedicated myself to Jesus on year 1. So it's not something I grew up with, wasn't part of my family, but it's certainly, thanks to my wife, something that was brought to me earlier. So now, as I started fighting with my wife, not fighting with my wife, that's not fair to say. I started struggling with my wife wanting to get back to America and me trying to hold on to this dream as hard as I could. So we went 5 years. I wasn't really comfortable with although I gave my life to Jesus, I wasn't comfortable with my walk with Jesus at this point in time. So I was hanging on to dear life. Marriage was getting difficult, and at some point in time, I started feeling the Holy Spirit give me a little bit of a nudge saying, hey, it's time to give up on this one. And that was tough for me because it was something I worked for a very long time. It was like tunnel vision. So we did what any normal family would do. We packed up everything we owned. We sold all of our stuff, and we decided to move to Las Vegas. Right? That's what everybody does. That's what I was told. So here we are, just the two of us in Las Vegas, and we gave up what I considered everything at the time, short of my marriage. And I didn't have a future at the time. So I was like, man, what am I gonna do? And I decided to take what very little money we had from selling our home, and I went and bought a digital marketing company. I shipped over, I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got sold what really ended up being a bag of goods. So I bought this digital marketing company. It's kind of simple. They build websites. There's a fulfillment team, and I go and sell. And you build your company from there. It was really kind of a good idea at the time, except the owner of the company had no intentions of fulfilling anything, and it was a little bit of a scam. So there we are, 6-8 months later, all of our money is gone. And I'm starting from scratch. And at that point in time, I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, I had this good deal going on in Canada. I had this dream going on. Now we're in Las Vegas. We're starting to run out of money. This is not good. So my wife decides, I think she went to go visit her parents. Anyway, she left me. Not for good, but she left me. So I'm going to our church. We went to Central Christian Church in Las Vegas. And I remember being in the back of the church. I have no idea what to do, and I'm thinking, man, I don't want to go back to Canada. I don't really want to go backwards to this store. I felt like it'd be a failure if I did that. So I'm sitting in the back of the church, right at the far, far back by myself. I got tears rolling down my cheeks, and I was just like, God, please help me. I just need a way. I need to figure things out. This is getting really difficult. And then being a little bit crafty and feisty, as you can see, I'm not a towering figure. I'm 5'6". I played college basketball, so I was like the fighter. I was like the runt, running around the court playing defense. So I decided that, I was going to figure out how to make this work. So I snuck into a conference. It was a car dealer digital conference. And I decided I was going to go find companies that could kind of do a similar thing, fulfill this marketing need for dealers. So that's what I did. So I sneak in, I decide to sign up every company that is willing to not employ me, but sell me their stuff, fulfill it. And I started knocking on doors and knocking on doors and knocking on doors. And it's not easy, and it's very humbling for anybody who's actually knocked on doors and tried to sell something before. So that was my life for about 3 years, knocking on doors, knocking on doors, knocking on doors. And we started to pick up a little bit of steam. And then one day, right about when we're ready to lose, almost all of our money, there was a company that came on and said, hey, what if we paid you a salary? And that was a godsend right there, because we were right there, ready to pack it up. So we celebrated because that was our ticket with this one company, and then that allowed us to give us just at least enough to keep on going, keep on trying, keep on working. And at some point, I met every car dealer in town, to the point where one guy was like, hey, you're here every day. Why don't you come work for me? And I thought, that's a good idea. Okay. I had my son, we just had our first child at the time, my son, and it was just, oh man, it was a blessing. When somebody offered me a job that paid, a little bit better money than what I was making right now, I was like, yes, I will accept. I think before he asked me, I said yes. So I get on, and it was interesting because I was actually promised another car dealership. Kind of a similar thing that, my original dream. It was like, hey, come on with us. And, work for us for 3-4 months. We'll, test you out, and later we're going to give you a car dealership. It was a big car dealership out in Phoenix, Arizona. So, I was like, my dreams are back on track. We're good. Everything's great. God answered my prayers. 3 months later, I'm fired. Yeah. Can you believe that? Me? So that was tough. So I've never been fired before. That was my first time I was actually fired from something. So that was a little bit devastating. And there we are back. We gave up the startup, the marketing company, and now we went to unemployed. Stayed unemployed for 4 months, and luckily, you just never know, when God's working, right? And so I think at the time he's really working on perseverance with me, just with knocking on these doors. And eventually, because I was such a pest to everybody in town, somebody found out that I'm going to work at a car dealership. So I got a call from a company. That's my daughter, by the way. Called AutoNation. That's Joy. That's Joy right there. She just found out I got fired. So, all right, where was I? Okay, so my wife actually, she helped me with this, the comfortable PowerPoint. So glory belongs to God, whose power is at work in us. By this power, he can do infinitely more than we could ask or imagine. This is really true to me. So AutoNation takes a chance on me. They bring me on board. They put me on this executive leader program, and I bounce around store to store to store to store. And there's this store that nobody wants. It's called AutoNation Nissan in Las Vegas. Nobody wants it because everybody who goes in there seems to not last very long. It's a very difficult store. And I was told hey, work really hard. We're going to give you this great, it was like an Audi store. I was like, that's really cool. I'll work for an Audi brand. And so they ended up going to this leadership conference similar to this. And the head of HR comes to me and says, hey, great news, James. We have a store for you. It's Nissan. And I was like, are you sure? It's not Audi? It's Nissan? They're like, yeah, it's Nissan. And it was a break for me. So I was like, let's make it work. We're going to have to figure out how to make it work. And the one thing I knew, and we talked a little bit about teams earlier, I have a little bit of a sports background, but I knew if I could get everybody to row in the same direction, build this culture, okay, build a great team, it doesn't really matter what store it is, what franchise it is, you can make things work. So I take over this Nissan store. Back up a little bit again. Take over this Nissan store. It lost $500,000 on before I took it over. And in 3 years, we got it to make $4 million. That wasn't me. That wasn't me who did it. But afterwards, I had this great opportunity. They called me, and I moved my wife away from Seattle, or from Canada. And they said, hey, James, we have this great opportunity for you. It's to move up to Seattle. And I was like, that's really close to Canada. It's really, really close to Canada. So I went home, spoke to my wife, and I said, hey, good news, bad news. Okay, I got this great opportunity. We're going almost up to Canada. And here's what it is. Now, the opportunity is amazing. So market president in AutoNation is, there's only 16 spots in the whole company. There's roughly 350 stores. So it is really what everybody kind of aspires to be, who's a general manager. I was the youngest one in the company's history. I didn't even lift my hand for it, so it was really an honor that they offered me this type of position. And this is one of those things where, you know, I was hanging on to this original dream from my hometown to, you know, take over a store that was very small. And all of a sudden we go through this, you know, character building process for me. And all of a sudden I get this job that's just so much bigger than any dream I've ever had. It wasn't an easy road. It was a tough road. So I'm trying to skip through it fast so we get to the good stuff. But it was a very difficult road to get there. But it's just cool to see how God works. So I got my warm, cozy blanket here. So we'll skip to something. Oh, yeah. This is what we do in corporate America. These are life charts. Okay. See this Bazuik life chart? Okay. This is on the top here. If you can't read, the top is my career, the blue. God's plan is next. You can see they intersect roughly 2011. God wins. We keep going. Okay. That's how we work. Okay. Okay, so what I did, so we talked about driving high-performance teams. I was fortunate to have a lot of mentors along the way. And as I was thinking about, okay, what can I share that, you know, is universal that should help anybody who's starting or getting into business? Is there anybody who's starting a business right now, who's in business, who's a leader looking to drive high-performance teams? We got a few in here? Okay, fantastic. He's got a small business? Perfect. Okay, so these are the best tips I've learned along the way, and I grabbed them from a bunch of different people. And these ones worked well for me. Hopefully they do the same to you. Okay, so we kind of touched on this actually earlier with Pastor Josh going through. So we talked about motivation. Now there we go. It's really important to understand, for one, what motivates you. And everybody's different. So if you're looking to get into a new career, or if you have a career currently, it's really important to understand, okay, who are you and what motivates you, because there's going to be tough times, right? And it's really important when tough times comes that you know yourself and what motivates you. And secondly, if you are in a leadership type role or aspire to be in a leadership type role, it's really important to understand what motivates your team members, but what motivates them individually. So you've seen the video, AutoNation's video, and it's "Go Be Great," and that's kind of like our, tagline for what you will, right? But again, it's a really big organization. You see, at the start of the video, 6 o'clock in the morning, they hit their clock, everybody's fired up. I mean, I've had 6 in the mornings where I was like, snooze, 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 snooze. But if you're going in, one advice that I got from one of my mentors, he sat there and he said, "Hey, James, we need you to go in, spend time." I was at a store with 120 employees, okay? And they said, "Hey, James, I want you to meet every single employee and ask them some personal questions. Ask them about themselves. Try to find out," is exactly what he says, what motivates them. He says, "It'll serve you well." And at the time, in my world, again, it's sales, 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 go, 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 go. So for me to stop for a minute, I was like, okay, well, let's give it a try. This is at the Toyota store, by the way, I got fired from. So I spend time at this Toyota store, and I meet every single person, and I have a sheet, and I ask them the same question, which is, who are you, what are your hobbies, what do you do, and hey, why do you get up in the morning, what motivates you? I went person by person by person by person. That was the most valuable lesson I've ever had in my entire career. When I ended up getting that Nissan store, which I spoke about, the whole staff came over to my store. As soon as they found out I had a store, the whole staff said, "Hey, can we go with James? This is a job I had for like 3-4 months." And we took the whole staff. Not the whole staff, a good chunk, all the best ones. All came out, okay? And Adam and I were talking earlier about, getting the right people, right? Having the right people and how important that is. And just spending this time with my employees, trying to understand what motivates them. Nobody had ever asked them that before. They were just, people that worked there. It was just a job for them. But once you start getting into the personal side, they felt a sense of purpose. And again, it was just a great moment that I wanted to share with you. And then secondly, what motivates your team collectively? I think in your leadership position, it's important to have a vision We're going to get into vision statements a little bit. We're going to get into mission statements. But it's important to get that collective vision. So that's why I made the list. Oh. Was anybody at Pastor Ray's last night, evening? Yeah? It was pretty good, right? It was awesome. So I was just talking to him moments ago, and he talked about safety, right? And he talked about, the Lord is my shepherd, not safety is my shepherd or anxiety is my shepherd, and that really stuck out to me. So I was given this a little bit more, a fun version, which is ready, fire, aim. Okay, so there's a lot of people in business that you sit there and you calculate, you get this kind of analysis paralysis. And I had one mentor of mine that says, just go. Just go. Just start. Take that first step. Okay, don't be scared. Just go. Ready, fire, aim. And I thought it was kind of a hilarious sign because I'm definitely a ready, aim, fire kind of guy. So when I heard ready, fire, aim, I'm like, I'm all in. I shared this with everybody. So this had to make it. So be brave, take action. These are my notes for me, by the way, but you could copy them if you'd like. And then I have that, again, my wife helped me with this. Commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. So I love that. And ready, fire, aim. Write that down. Okay, so now building a great team. So this is, kind of the meat and potatoes of it. So I have a great relationship with human resources because human resources are the smartest people in business. If you have a great relationship with human resources, they give you a lot of insight. So teams. Okay, does everybody know anything about sports teams? What's one thing that a sport, maybe the Kansas City Chiefs, what do they accomplish? They win, right? They win Super Bowl. What other teams are there? Tech startups, right? What do they win? That's a team. Doctors, right? Automotive companies. Okay, these are all teams and their whole goal is to win, right? So the main thing about teams, or a big part of it, which again we touched on, but recruiting. Recruiting's a big one. And this was a tip that was given to me, and I have, it's a tip that I give to general managers. Just from a scope size, I have 16 different franchise car dealerships, which means 16 different leaderships. And I've watched leaders succeed and fail. And the easiest place that they fail, or the most common place they fail, happens to be with people and HR and understanding who they should hire. Okay, so recruiting piece and knowing who to recruit is crucial. It's a crucial part of your business. Which goes on to hiring, right? So hiring the right people. And then finally, onboarding is something that I learned to ignore because I'm in a go, go, go world. HR has stopped me and said, hey, listen, onboarding is everything. When somebody starts their new job, if you don't take the time to help them feel welcome, feel part of the team, okay, you're missing out on a big, big, big part of what business is. So I thought that was an amazing tip, and it served me well. And now everybody that comes on with our company, it's welcome packets, partnering up with somebody at the store level that could provide them with some insight, regular meetings with senior leadership, and that's a big part of it. And our whole business model has changed based off of something as simple as onboarding that most people don't think is important. This is kind of boring, right? I said high performance teams, we're talking onboarding, right? It's important though. Trust me, it's important. Training's a big part, career paths, we kind of touched on that earlier, but providing somebody with a career path and asking somebody what their career aspirations are, that's everything. Because you got to really, at the end of the day, it's in a big corporation, you really need to know what everybody's aspirations are, even if it's not to work for your company. Okay, but partner up with a mentor that can help grow them, right? Again, even if you're growing them out of the company, that's a good thing, right? You're going to get the most out of any employee that you have. Retaining kind of follows along with culture, which we'll talk about culture in a minute. But if you have great retention, normally you have a great customer experience in my world. So retention is a really big thing, and that gets driven, mainly from culture, great employee engagement, leadership, and ultimately that leads to performing. So building a great team, that's a big one. So this is interesting because this is something I didn't consider, okay? So lead with a mission statement and a vision statement. Okay, so I just wanted to explain the difference between the two. So a mission statement clearly defines your company's objectives and how you'll reach them. Okay, so it's not that personal, but it needs to be made clear to the employees on specifically what that mission is. Okay, and the next one, a vision statement defines where your business or organization aspires to go. Okay, it's important to share, and really it's in an ideal world, if you're in a smaller company, if you could get the employees to help create the vision statement and be a part of it. Have you ever heard the saying, if you weigh in, you buy in? If you could get people to weigh in on what the vision is, okay, you're going to get much better buy-in, much better employee engagement. You get everybody kind of rowing the same direction. So the vision statement is really a big part of it. So the vision and mission statement, so that's really the guiding principles of your company or your business. If you're working for a company right now and you don't know what the vision statement is or the mission statement, it's something that you'd want to get clearly defined so you get everybody going on the same direction. And this is another big part. So company's integrity is really big, especially right now. And I have this because, again, it's important. Never waver from your identity or integrity. Often in business, mission statements get tested with greed, and that's just the truth. Business, and especially big business, publicly traded companies, it's really important to have that strong foundation, and that is really the guiding principles when you're making decisions. Getting there. All right, that's my favorite one. So culture. Culture is something I could talk about forever because I do believe that it's everything. It's everything. It's just, I was just saying, culture is not one thing, it is everything. And it truly is everything. So I talked about earlier about culture being dynamic. Okay, so culture being dynamic, and it's not static. And what that means really is that you create the culture, the employees create the culture by what you do, the attitude you bring, what you think. All these things control culture. So again, going back to the Go Be Great video was the reason I wanted to show it. So our company culture, okay, is Go Be Great. Okay, there's a little bit more definition behind Go Be Great, which I'm not going to go through. But on a large scale, store by store, individual level, the really important piece of it is what not only the leadership brings to the table, but what the employees bring to the table. So if you get into this workplace, has everybody been in a workplace with kind of a toxic environment? Right? Yeah, there's a lot of them that exist. And really, if you think about it, a lot of times it's partially, bad boss, that happens, right? And then, the other thing that tears it down is negativity around if everybody's talking negative, that is the culture. And if you're the one who's negative, you're part of the culture. Right, so a big deal when you get into any kind of space, any type of workplace, is check that ego at the door and understand that if you're complaining about the culture, you are the culture. It is you. So you can take responsibility for the culture to make it great, or continue down that road, right? And again, ultimately, there's a leadership piece where the leadership should control the culture, but that's not always the case, right? There's some bad bosses out there. Now the other piece, okay, so the last piece here is just clearly defining what you want in your culture. Adam talked about that actually earlier as far as how he clearly defined his culture before you even built your business plan, I think, right, Adam? That's exactly what you said. So I just absolutely, wholeheartedly agree with that. Adam and I just met 5 minutes ago, so we're on the same page. All right. This is another one. So know your business, know your numbers. Aside from culture, okay, so we want a great culture, but the other piece of it is businesses are, designed for profitability to make money for the most part. Okay, it is important if you are in business to know your numbers. Okay, and you have to share your numbers. So one of the most important things that I've learned along the way is that scorecards are important. People do really want to know where they stand, especially when you're if you have greater aspirations for more. A lot of times you just need feedback. And sometimes business moves so quickly that feedback just doesn't happen. You don't get any feedback. You don't know if you're doing great or if you're not doing such a great job because there's no feedback. So a crucial piece of business is some level of a scorecard. In our business, there's financial statements. We've created scorecards specifically for growth. So everybody knows where there's a fair opportunity for everybody to achieve a certain level, and you know exactly where you stand. So, and if you want to drive to be more, that capability is there for anybody, right? So having some level of a scorecard, if you will, does a couple things. One, gives people the opportunity to grow, and two, it gives people generally a job description, right? So you know what to do during the day. So I'm not talking about it today, but I do leadership talks for my company, and everybody knows me as the habit guy. I talk about habits all the time, okay? Easiest way to drive habits is checklists. They sound boring, and they are boring, okay? But if you get checklists done every single day, and you do the same thing every single day with the same intensity, and you get really boring with your job, you're gonna end up being really, really great at your job. You end up automating a lot of these easier, simpler tasks, and then when you come to something a little bit more difficult, you don't have to worry about the mundane part. You want the mundane part to be like, you know, brushing your teeth in the morning. All right, where was I? Go back to my blanket here. Okay, I think I covered that. Okay, so this is a big one. When you struggle. So I talked a little bit about my struggles earlier, and this is a place where everybody gets to, okay? And this was advice that I was given. So when you're in a tough spot, it's important to go back to the basics. So start there. So anytime you're in a tough spot, head back to the basics. And then we talked about motivation earlier. And you always got to remind yourself what your motivation is. Because a lot of times in business or work, it's just easy to get lost in the shuffle. Big companies like mine, it's really easy to get lost in the shuffle. And it's important, you know, from my vantage point, is to teach and coach our leadership team on how to bring people up. Making sure people don't get lost, a lot of touch points so that, you know, we can stay in tune with our people. But if that doesn't happen, and going back to the original slide, understanding your motivation, okay, get back to that. Never forget what brought you there in the first place. If you're in a toxic culture, toxic environment, okay, don't forget what motivated you and maybe what brought you to the job. Because listen, maybe you're in a great job that you love and maybe you're not. But understanding you, yourself, and what you want to be, what you strive to be, if it's not the right environment for you, I'm not saying quit your job. Hopefully nobody's quitting their job today, but you know, maybe look somewhere else, right? That is going to align with your motivation. And then get inspired. So I'm like, I love, you know, quotes and stuff like that, business quotes. I could read them all day. I got them like screenshotted every time I see something. I read a lot of leadership books. On and on and on, and that drives me, that gets me motivated. And then obviously just keep fighting, okay? We're near these tough spots. We got that ready, fire, aim, right? Sometimes it's a matter of just getting gritty, staying down, and just keep on going. And, you know, when I look at myself and my life, when I was going through those tough times door knocking, I mean, my only motivation, you know, at that time was I just got to keep going. Just got to get up, it's one day at a time, keep going, keep knocking. And that was just a really valuable lesson for me with my life. And it's helped me grow from there. Okay, and this is Inspired Conference, right? So get inspired. This is, again, compliments of my wife. So in His grace, God has given us the different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God's given you the ability to prophecy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it's giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership abilities, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. I love this, okay? Because we're all different. We've all been given different gifts. And if you could find out exactly what those are and stay in those pockets, I believe that is a recipe for happiness long term. And that is all I have for today. Yes.
You said when you're struggling, the first thing to get back to basics. Can you
Yep.
say a little more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. So again, Oh, sorry. She said when you are struggling. What do I mean by getting back to the basics? Okay. So I'm in a sales environment, so it might be a little bit more relevant to that. But for the most part, anytime any type of associate of mine is struggling, there is, basics for most businesses, right? And there's some foundational, principles to, again, most companies. And a lot of times when I'm seeing an associate struggle, it's just because they forgot the foundational pieces, right? So that's kind of more lines of what I meant on that piece. So if you get to this point where you're struggling, a lot of, honestly, younger group of people, again, in my business, they get to know everything super fast. And then at some point, there's that little bit of a slump. So again, what I encourage everybody to do is, okay, forget that you know everything, and let's move back to the basics and get you back on track. So getting back to that foundation. Hopefully that answers your question.